I'm going to talk in English. I hope that is okay. Yeah. My name is Markus Bumman, and I work at the Swedish Institute since 2009, many years now, I think. Currently I work at the Talent Mobility Unit at the Department for International Relations, and my expertise is scholarships and academic collaboration in the Baltic Sea region. I'm going to talk for about 20-25 minutes, something like that, and then I hope you have a lot of questions, so we can have a discussion afterwards. And I don't know how many of you are, for example, students, and how many of you are PhD students or researchers. So if I miss something, you have to tell me afterwards, and we can go back and highlight what is most relevant for you. I was asked to give this lecture about studies in Sweden and the Swedish higher education from a broader perspective, but I think that it's more relevant if I talk with you about the concrete opportunities that we can offer for you in terms of scholarships and different grants that you can use if you are interested in coming to Sweden. And I will start talking about the Swedish Institute, say a few things about us in general, and then I will try to narrow down talking about what we do in this region. Lastly, go into the different scholarship opportunities we have, different processes, application procedure, and so on. So it will be more and more specific as I talk, okay? Well, the Swedish Institute, I don't know how many of you have heard about the Swedish Institute before. We are not an academic institution. We have no programs or courses by ourselves. We are in fact a public agency under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Sweden, and we work to make the distance between Sweden and other countries closer. We try to work with promoting interest and knowledge about Sweden abroad, together with our colleagues at the embassies and consulates. And we have been an institute for I don't know how many years, but we were founded in 1945 after the Second World War in a drive to make Sweden more known abroad. So it's actually a way of building understanding between countries and cultures, roughly called public diplomacy in Sweden. We try to use different sectors and parts of the society, like academic landscape with higher education, but also the cultural sector, in order to promote exchanges and meetings between people, between cultures, between organizations, different levels in society. We try also to focus on thematic areas that we think are important both for Sweden, but maybe also for the collaboration between Sweden and Russia. For example, innovation practices, environmental concerns, and how we can work together for a more sustainable future. I should also say that we have a quite broad spectrum of tools in our toolbox to do this. We work with scholarships for exchanges and mobility, but we also work with long-term project collaboration, exhibitions, different events. We arrange seminars, expert visits, and many different things, trying to build meeting places between people. Okay, in the Baltic Sea region, we try to use the whole spectrum actually of our operations, since we believe that it's very important to work with our neighbors, and this was founded in an idea that came up in Sweden in, I think it was 1995 or 96, to start to take more initiated contacts with our colleagues and our friends on the other side of the Baltic Sea. Russia was one of the first countries included in what we now call the Baltic Sea collaboration. And the idea really is to build an integrated region where mobility between our countries, professional exchanges and collaboration is natural. We have many different methodologies to reach these long-term goals, and I would say that one of the most important things is that we think that we need to identify and address challenges we have in common, like environmental concerns, for example. In a short-term perspective, we'd like to see more concrete things, like increased mobility, people to travel between our countries, and contacts between people. We think that is very important as a start, at least, for more proficient collaboration afterwards. Shared experiences, new approaches, new knowledge, just such thing that our scholarship holders get a degree or advance in their academic career is a short-term goal worth to emphasize. We also connect with national strategies in Sweden, but also international strategies and policies such as the EU strategy for the Baltic Sea region. So the Visby program, today the Visby program is the framework program of the academic individual mobility within the Baltic Sea region cooperation. We have about 140 scholarship grants, new grants per year, and we account for a budget of, I would say, 30 or so million Swedish kronors annually. And we are quite generous, I would say, with the scholarships that we offer. They are full coverage, meaning that if there are tuition fees included in your studies, for example, in Sweden, our scholarships will cover the tuition fees, but you also have a monthly grant for accommodation, food, local travels, and so on. We target many different groups. It's not just young students or young researchers. It's also academic experts and young professionals who have advanced, moved on from their studies, maybe had 1 or 2 years of professional experience, then maybe found a need to gain additional knowledge in order to advance more in his or her career. But primarily you can say that our biggest groups are master's level students, PhD students, and postdoctoral researchers. We have both inbound and outbound mobility. So for us, it's a two-way dialogue, you would say, that Swedish students can come here to Narfu, for example, for studies here, while at the same time we provide scholarship for a student from Arkhangels to go to Sweden. But it's not a bilateral program in the sense that we need people going both ways. So you don't have to think about that. But we will provide offers in both ways. We have the possibility to invite you to many different projects and other activities carried out either by Swedish Institute or at least with Swedish Institute part financing due to our quite broad operations in this region. And we have even involved scholarship holders in large-scale EU projects, and that has been very successful and appreciated in many ways. While you study in Sweden, you have also most likely possibility to do internships at companies or organizations in Sweden, which could benefit to your future career. Okay, maybe you don't see. Do you see? Yeah? Sorry for the color. I tried to narrow it down even further to mention 3 different support structures that we have for inbound academic mobility to Sweden. The first one concerns master's level studies. So you can go to Sweden for a full degree study tour for 1 or 2 years. And you will compete with students from Belarus, Georgia, Moldova and Ukraine. About 50 or 60 of such scholarships are provided each year. If you are a PhD student enrolled at PhD studies here in Arkhangельsk, you can come to Sweden to do part of your PhD training at a Swedish university. Maybe if you need, for example, laboratory work to be done for your thesis, or if you just need to be in another research environment in order to complete what you're writing in your thesis. You can come to Sweden for up to 12 months in total to participate in research projects in Sweden, and then go back here to Arkhangelsk and complete your PhD training. Then you'll compete with all of the countries included in the Visby program. And now I realize I forgot to mention that our definition of the Baltic Sea region is quite wide. We include the whole of Russia, which is enormous just as a country. We have the whole of Ukraine, Belarus, Georgia, Moldova, Poland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. So it's 9 countries included in this bigger program. And a new type of scholarship that we introduced this year is studies in Sweden held in Swedish. So you can study in Sweden for up to 2 semesters, but in Swedish language. So it could be in any academic subject or discipline, but the studies have to be undertaken in Swedish. So for master's level studies, it's a full degree study scheme for 1 or 2 years. You can choose. We will publish a list in November with about 400 different master's programs held at about 30 universities across Sweden, taught in English. And they are either 1 or 2 years in duration. And you can choose up to 4 different programs in order to increase your chances to get admitted to one of them. We provide the tuition fee coverage, and we solve that with the universities without including the scholarship holders in any way, just to make it more easy for you to understand. But we will give you a monthly grant of 9,000 Swedish kronors to cover for accommodation and living expenses. It's quite expensive these days to be a student in Sweden, but we think that 9,000 kronors, it's satisfactory at least for you to be able to have a decent student life as a normal student in Sweden. We also provide you with health insurance and a travel grant. And yeah, I just wanted to show how the application procedure looks like, but you don't have to write it down because we will describe it for you at the Study in Sweden website. But it works like this, that starting in November we will publish a list of eligible programs. Then you apply to up to 4 of these programs using the Swedish central admission system. It's organized by a different public authority, but we work with them in parallel, you can say. You have to pay the application fee. Unfortunately, this application fee is mandatory, and there is no chance of getting it back if you fail to be admitted or if you don't get a scholarship. So it's worth taking into consideration before sending in your application. Is this really something I'd like to do? In parallel, you will apply to the Swedish Institute Visby program using our electronic application form. And we don't look just on your academic excellence. We let the universities do the admission. So when we get a note that you have been admitted, that you feel that you are eligible for this program, that you meet the basic education requirements, then we will look at your personal motivation, your background, and we look also on your reference. So we look more on the extracurricular aspects of you as a person. We would like to see you as who you are, not just the way you perform in school and at the university, reading the textbook. We'd like to see what your ambitions are. So in April, the universities announced who have been admitted and where. After that, we can make the final shortlist of candidates. And in late April, we will also announce who received the scholarship from us. Studies in Sweden held in Swedish language. Yeah, as I said, it's a new type of scholarship. It's a pilot project, and starting now, the first application call is already open. It will be open until 31st of October, and we count on about 10 scholarships granted this autumn, maybe more. I've heard that we have more budget available if we will have additional number of good applications. But important to know is that you will compete with students from Belarus, Moldova, and Ukraine. And students who travel within an exchange agreement, a bilateral agreement, they will have priority. So for example, it could be an idea to check with your international office and see which bilateral agreements you have at the university. I'm told that you have, for example, an agreement with Mälardalen University and Umeå University in North Sweden. It's worth for you to maybe check out before applying if you're interested. But the studies have to be performed in Swedish. So you have to be proficient in Swedish to the B1 or B2 level. So this is not an opportunity for each and every one of you here, I realize that. But at least could be worth to note if you have a friend maybe who knows Swedish but doesn't have an idea of where to pursue the next studies. Also, we will cover for tuition fees if you're not covered with a bilateral agreement. You will have living expenses counted for to 9,000 kronor per month. PhD studies, postdoctoral research. We provide about 50 scholarships per year. Some years more, some years less. Depends on how many applications we get, really. We don't have a set of quotes between different structures in this program. So depending on how many applications we get, we can limit the number of grants as well. All countries in the Visby program are eligible to apply from. And you can stay in Sweden at a university, do part of your research there for up to 12 months in total, 6 months for senior scientists. And there are no tuition fees included here, but there are no tuition fees asked for by the universities either. but you will have a monthly grant for living expenses of 15,000 Swedish kronor per month, or 18,000 if you are a postdoctoral researcher. If you don't have the possibility to stay in Sweden for so long time in a row, you can divide your scholarship period in smaller but more intense research visits. It's called the sandwich model. Okay, moving on. As I told you, we not only try to attract people who are currently studying, and we don't only look at your academic score. In fact, we put quite high emphasis on your extracurricular activities. For example, if you are active in an NGO, if you have had jobs before, if you have been involved in society in some degree, maybe participated in exchanges or projects, it's worth mentioning in your application so that we get a whole picture of you as a person, who you are and what you want to do. And you can actually come from a business enterprise, but as long as you meet the academic requirements from the program, we have no problem in giving you a scholarship for additional studies in Sweden or research. We talk about talent mobility, but it's not the same as that you need to be a rock star or have a certain talent in that sense. It's more that we look at people who have this curious mindset, people with ambitions and ideas about where they are in relation to the society, and people who want to be active citizens and do give a contribution to their home country and this greater region. People who are interested in an international environment and collaborate in international projects. That's our definition of a talented person. So you don't have to be the best student from the best university in Russia. It could be, you could be a talent from another point of view as well. The Visby program provides scholarships not only as a monthly payment. Our scholarship is actually something much more. We will put you in different, expose you for different international projects. We'll put you in a global environment. You will automatically, through our scholarship holders network, the SI network for future global leaders, you will get acquaintances and you will have friends from maybe 50, 60, even 100 countries over your 2 years in Sweden, because we provide scholarships for, I don't know, but many countries from all across the globe. And we'll put you in the same global network. So it's a platform for you to continue discussing questions of relevance for you and for your country. And we also give you the opportunity to develop your own activities in this network as well, such as seminars, study visits, and so on. Afterwards, you will be invited to join the Swedish Institute Alumni Network, which you can use if you want to continue building activities together with your friends and colleagues when you come back to Russia again. When you're studying or doing your research in Sweden, there are many out-of-the-box possibilities for you to be aware of. Swedish language studies offered for free by many universities if you are a master's level student, for example, or a researcher. Many of the programs in Sweden these days have elective courses, and some of them include, or many of them include internships at organizations or companies in Sweden. Interesting for you if you want to get exposed to Swedish entrepreneurship, work styles, and well, business sector in Sweden, for example. If you are studying in a 2-year program, you will have the possibility to stay in Sweden between the semesters, and then you can do summer jobs or you can travel around and discover Sweden all by yourself. We don't care. It's really your time and your choice. Part-time job possibilities. You can work part-time while doing your studies if your studies are proceeding in a good pace. Yeah, there are many more to mention, but I won't do that. Yeah. Coming to Sweden, you will be exposed to many familiar and many maybe strange peculiarities. You know what this is? Midsummer, yeah. Yeah, and students either tend to enjoy this festivity or they hate it. So it's either you will have to discover your own idea about it first. But you will also have possibility to see other parts of Swedish culture. I tried to use Google to search for Swedish culture, and then I expected to have pictures of Astrid Lindgren or Midsummer, but instead I got this more contemporary picture of Swedish culture. I think this is taken at DreamHack in Jönköping, the biggest computer gaming event in the world, held annually in Sweden. This is what Sweden looks like where I come from in the far north. Also part of Sweden and Swedish culture, I would say. Work style at office or in your studies. You will discover that Sweden both has similar approaches to education and work, but also other ways of doing things. But you will discover this by yourself. And what I want to say, some interesting meetings as well. Maybe networking. You don't have to get married, but this was actually sent to us by 2 former scholarship holders who met on our kick-off event in Stockholm. Today they celebrate the day of the kick-off event because that's when they first met. Now they are married, so they just wanted to inform us how we work with networking in practice. Anyway, what I wanted to say with these pictures is that you may have different agendas, different ideas about Sweden, different motives for going abroad. But regardless of the idea you have when you go to Sweden, I will assure you that if you go to Sweden on a Swedish Institute scholarship, we will put you in the center of this picture. We will expose you to different parts of Sweden, both Swedish culture, Swedish innovation landscape, how we do business, but we will also expose you to maybe international projects and research carried out at your university. So it's in the middle of this creative picture we try to put our scholarship holders. And this is what we do on a regular day-to-day basis. So it's nothing strange for us to put you there. And we try to see this also as natural part of talent mobility, that when you go home to Russia afterwards, we might have put an extra puzzle piece for you that you can use in your career when you come back. And you don't have to remember all the things I've said today, but important to know is that we have a few websites that you should remember. It's the Study in Sweden website. It's the official gateway for studies and research in Sweden. We also have an interactive map where you can see all the different universities in Sweden and links to them, so you can discover their different specialties and research orientation, for example. learningswedish.se. That's our newly started Swedish language course online, free of charge. So if you're a beginner in Swedish language, you can go home now and start studying from your personal computer, from your home. si.se, our main official website, and I didn't have time to update this presentation, but this autumn we will also announce our scholarships on si.se. But you will be directed from the Study in Sweden website as well. So if you just remember any of these websites, you will come to our scholarship application processes. And if you want to have more information about how we work in this region, which scholarships you might be eligible for, you can contact us, preferably by email. I'm working as a program manager for the Visby program, but I also have a colleague, Madeleine Mattsson, who is our administrator, and we both answer to emails, and we are obliged to, because we are a Swedish public agency, so we need to reply to your question how stupid it is. So don't hesitate, send emails to us. But there are also other grants that you should be aware of. We have recently started, you can say, an informal collaboration with Russia's official scholarship program for outbound student mobility, the Global Education Program. They like us to inform you about that they exist and that you can maybe keep them in mind as maybe a second option to the Swedish Institute scholarships. You have the North to North program where NARFO is part of. It's the Arctic universities. It's a collaborative tool that has a scholarship program included. Difficult to see due to the lines here, but the Swedish universities also have scholarships provided as funds from the government, and you can apply for them as well, but they only cover tuition fees. So the Swedish Institute scholarships are probably the most generous at the time. The Global Education Program or North to North, about the same maybe, and then you have the scholarships from other Swedish donors or even at Swedish universities. So, yeah, a lot of information, but thank you for listening.